bottle of whiskey down and start a fight or two. I ain't George Foreman or Ali, but I've won a few.
I'm a truck driving, Holly riding son of a gun. Loud country music bumping, come and have you some fun. Deer hunting, beer guzzling, boot wearing Southern man. Now give it back.
I don't buy exotic cars, I like American made. Oh, I'm a real man, son, just walk away. You know, if you ain't heard it.
I'm a truck driving, Holly riding son of a gun. Loud country music bumping, come and have you some fun. Deer hunting, beer guzzling, boot wearing Southern man. Come get it back.
Hi, everybody. Joel Mills here with the NFT Pro Fitness Club and BamBam Boxing Academy. So excited to have everybody here. Thanks for being here. Man, watching that video just gets me juiced up, starts the goosebumps, gets me ready to get back in that ring. Couple things, guys. Joel Mills, and starting off with the NFT Pro Fitness Club. It's our online fitness program. We're 5 days a week. It's what I use to train my fighters when I go into the ring myself. We might have some news coming up about me getting back in the ring at some point in the near future. But so excited to have you here for Ringside Banter, guys. This show is basically going to be what boxing has meant to me throughout my life. It's something I've dedicated my entire life to, and been close to 30 years in the game now, run through the amateur ranks and through the professional ranks, as well as the promotional game, the managerial game, and the gym game. So lots to talk about, guys, but boxing's such a magical sport in the sense of it's so much more than just in there fighting. There's so much depth to the game from a mentality, a psychological standpoint, conditioning wise, what you can do for your body physically through the training, and just what the game means to me, and what are some of the lessons that I've seen learned in and out of the ring through the years in the game. Love to introduce my co-host at this point, Mr. Tyrone Bush from bushleague Media. One of my best buddies here. He's been a supporter of mine for a lot of years. We met back. I was probably about 20 years old when we met, so just kicking off my professional career in Los Angeles. And Tyrone, tell them a little about yourself. Thanks for being on here with me.
Yeah, Joel, thank you. Obviously, thanks for having me here along for the ride with you, co-hosting with you. It's been a bit of a mission for us to get to the point of episode 1 of the show, kind of try to get growing your fitness company and grow this boxing show eventually, where we kind of got some dreams to build something pretty big. But myself, I'm around the same age as Joel, a bit of a business person. I worked in the oil field for a long time, kind of always wanted to do some media stuff, and met Joel, I guess, a long time ago through Ellis Mania. I grew up skateboarding and doing a lot of different skateboard stuff growing up, little competitions, things of that. And obviously always enjoyed the skateboard scene. So kind of followed along with some of the Ellis Mania stuff. And that's how me and Joel got to know each other. But for myself, just a bit of an entrepreneur. I do a lot of community stuff like Joel, working on different projects and things like that. And I'm just excited to be along for the ride, co-hosted. I guess I'm kind of the Joe in the Pro and the Joe situation here. I've trained some boxing or workout, do a lot of your workouts, which I'm sure we'll get into later in the show. That they've been something I really appreciate doing at home in the home gym and stuff here. But just excited to learn from you and have some fun with this and contribute. I guess what comedic input I can to all this. But I'm looking forward to seeing where it all goes for us here.
Absolutely, man. No, it's awesome to have you here. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to the world of boxing and the stories, that's one of the most amazing things that I like to look back on over the last 30 years is the stories that have come out of it. Right. One thing when I set out on my path in boxing is I knew that I wanted to have a story to tell at the end of it, and it's been quite the ride. Starting boxing, I'll start at the beginning of my career. So at 6 years old, I remember my parents took me to the boxing gym for the very first time, and it was the Lethbridge Boxing Club run under the coaching of Kai Yip. Kai Yip was a legend in Southern Alberta, in the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame. One tough dude, trained his fighters tough.
Big Arlito brought you down there, I assume. I'm sure we'll have him on a future episode, but obviously your old man is a good buddy of mine too.
Absolutely, yeah. So when they finally took me to the boxing club at 6 years old, that was precluded by at least a couple years that I can recall of me begging to box. It was like it was something that was born into me. My family never had a boxing background. There was never any competitors. I didn't have a grandfather to look up to or what have you. And at the moment, when I was that age, Tabor didn't even have a functioning boxing club. So we had to do a half-hour drive to and from Lethbridge 2 days a week. And God bless my parents for making that drive with me for 10 years because it was something that I had to do. I knew from the moment that I walked into that gym that was something that I had to do, was compete in the boxing ring. And I was actually sent home at 6 years old. So we went in, talked to Kai. I actually got punched in the nose for the very first time. But he let me train one day and he said, no, come back when you're 8. You're going to have to wait a couple years. You're too young. So I spent a couple years waiting. Finally got to go to the gym at 8, trained a couple months, had my first fight at 9, and have done it ever since. It's been my entire life.
I was going to say you have a little over 100 amateur fights, if I recall, like 100, 108 or something like that.
Yeah, 108 amateur fights, 13 professional was what I ended my career at. And
hey, she ain't over yet, baby.
She ain't over yet. There's time left, and we got some big things on the go. So we're gonna have some good stuff coming up as far as promotions and potentially me getting back in the ring. But yeah, had 108 amateur fights. I was able to achieve 2 national titles before getting picked up by Freddie Roach and Justin Fortune at the Wildcard Boxing Club. At 18 years old, I moved down to LA to start my pro career. Spent 7 years in Los Angeles, sharpening my teeth and having 10 professional fights down there. And that's how I eventually met Jason Ellis. Was through the gym. Jason came in and he was going to fight in a celebrity boxing match. This was pre-Ellis Manias. So his very first fight. And what it was a celebrity amateur boxing card where certain celebrities would fight either a registered amateur boxer or another celebrity. So there was a few guys that went that night, and Jason was in this match. He was fighting a legit amateur boxer in Vegas, and he came into the gym. He needed some sparring. What led him into the gym was Jason Mayhem Miller and Rio Chonin, who were regulars on his show. We trained Mayhem and we trained Chonin at the gym. Great guys, beauty people. They ended up bringing Ellis in, and Ellis needed a sparring partner. And one thing that I got really, really good at when I was in LA was being a guy who could work with anybody trying to enhance their skills, whether they're amateur, professional, or needing to get their professional card. So Justin decided that I was going to be Ellis's sparring partner. And we trained for 8 weeks together, sparring 3 times a week. Me and Ellis probably did, 40 to 60 rounds over the course of that time. And what a tough guy, man. I got to give it to him. To jump into the sport at the age he was at and to give it all he's got and go as far as he did. Very, very impressive. And he has one thing about Ellis is he has really heavy hands. That's one thing we noticed.
Well, one thing that's cool, like listening to those stories and stuff, is like, I think one of the coolest parts about like some of how me and you intersect is that, like, say like that fight you talk about, obviously didn't know you, had never met Ellis yet then, but like I would have been listening to the radio show on the way home from the ring and like knew about the fight, followed the fight, watched the fight. So it's like cool to be here. I mean, I might have been 19, 20, 21 at the time. So like 15 years later, hearing a story and like I'm buddies with the guy who was training the dude who I was following for the fight. So it's pretty interesting, right? Because like obviously I followed Ellis's career pretty close through everything because he was a big PC guy for skateboarding and me being a big skateboarding guy and then just him having the big show on Sirius XM, right? That was kind of like what me and the boys listened to on the way home, right? And so we were always, we were all about the skateboarding, about the fighting, about all that stuff back in the day, right? So I was always super intrigued by it. So it's cool to know that you were the one training him for that. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, it was when I met Jason Ellis, it changed my life in a lot of ways. Mainly the things that I got to experience and do with them. Reffing the Ellis Manias from I think it was number 2 to number 19 or something along those lines. But yeah, just amazing stories. Every one of those Ellis Manias we walked away with some crazy experiences.
I got some pictures and stuff from back in the day. I'll pull them up if you want to check a few out. I got a couple from way back. I took them like obviously back from like before me and you probably really knew each other, right? But just like I think one of the like mascot fights there. But it's just trippy that like I have these old pictures of you like in the ring, like Joel Mills, reffing the whole thing, right? And it's like I don't know what number these are from. I just went through and like grabbed some different ones. But I mean, I think I was in like Ellis Mania 4 or 5 all the way to like the end, right? Basically, maybe the last few I wasn't at, but just cool to have some of the different pictures from back then. There's some cool different ones, I think, like with you in the ring with Shane Carwin, and just cool to have some different stuff. One where I'm meeting Dingo and some other fellas at the thing there. Hot Dog, who was on the show at the time, that I became pretty good buddies with. And obviously
Hot Dog was in one of the most legendary fights of Ellis Mania history.
That was awesome. Me and Hot Dog became pretty good buddies too. We'll have to get him on the show one day, or maybe even Ellis. But as I say, that's the first time I got the closest to Tony was at one of those events, right? Like obviously as a guy growing up skateboarding, I'm like, oh, that's so legendary, right? But
no, it was the Ellis Mania. As we ran the gambit from 1 to 20, it grew into something that was just really, really amazing to watch and really amazing to be a part of, because nobody will ever do an Ellis Mania again. I mean, only Ellis Manias were Ellis Manias. And what they were was they were a comedy boxing event, but they would be real fights. They would pit real fighters, guys that really wanted to get in there and try to test their skills. They would get in the ring in front of a roaring crowd in Las Vegas at the Hard Rock, and it was something special. But then along with these fights, we had things like the musical chairs fight, the pinata fights, the blindfolded dog collar match, the Dan Severn fight. Like there was just so many that I think back on.
Yeah, like I love going to, right? Because there's always UFC people, there's always famous people there, and I always thought about like going and being one of the fans who fought or whatever. I never did, so hopefully maybe it'll come full circle. Me and you will do it, but I was kind of thinking there, like you say it'll never happen again, but one thing I've really been thinking is that one thing I think we could do, maybe we'll chat with Ellis one day, but I think we could bring something like that back too, right? Especially with some of the stuff that I'm working on through like the membership stuff that we'll get into later on, but some of that stuff with different communities, different projects, different boxing groups. I think it would be cool if we could create our own events like that and bring people together, have fun, different fights, have some actual professional ones, some amateur ones, and some of those fun ones where you make some content and kind of like what we're trying to do now, right? We're getting a little older. The glory days might be behind us, so we thought, but we want to do something fun and do content. That's something that I think we're both kind of characters, you especially, and I think that'll be something we can explore one day, right? Is not only doing the amateur boxing events that you do. Obviously, you train a lot of young fighters and different people in your community and stuff, plus all the people that do the training online. But it's really cool to see, where you're at now in life with training everybody nowadays and stuff. And it's just cool to have it all come full circle like that, back from Ellis Mania to here. But obviously, aside from Ellis Mania, like before we get into where you're at now, you obviously had a lengthy bit of time in LA down there. I guess you want to tell us about how you got to that point, like how you got down to LA after kind of going through a bit of the stuff in Lethbridge and stuff like that. It'd be cool to hear a little bit about that. And down the road, I'm sure we'll get into those stories like really specifically and maybe have guests on and chat about it. But I think it'd be cool for the people to know just like a little bit more about you, not so much just how me and you met, but everything you did down there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the story that was weaved was a pretty neat one. So I boxed in Lethbridge at the Lethbridge Boxing Club for 8 years, from when I was 8 to when I was 16, and I probably had about 70 to 80 fights under Kai. Won my first national title under Kai. And the Lethbridge Boxing Club was one of these places. It was in the basement of a community center. And one thing about this club was Kai trained the kids tough. He was super old school. We sparred twice a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays. So every night in the gym, we'd be sparring. And it wasn't sparring easy. Some of my hardest matches were in that gym. Some of the hardest punches I ever took were in that gym. But that's what Kai offered to the boxing world. He offered tough kids. If you couldn't hang with the gym, then he was under the impression that you wouldn't be able to hang in the ring. And most times that rings true. There is certain occasions where a guy comes into the gym and he's timid in the gym and he doesn't perform real well in the gym, and then he gets under those lights and something comes out of him. And that's, again, one of the magical things of boxing is every time you step into that ring, you discover something about yourself that you didn't know before, and you walk out of there a more refined version of yourself. Whether you win, whether you lose, whether you just go in and train, it's a school for life. My mentor, Justin Fortune, he was my professional coach, and that's what he always used to say: boxing is the best school for life, because you got to get hit and keep going, just like Rocky says. But yeah, I had 80 amateur fights with Kai. I won my first national title. At that point in my career, it was time for me to move on to a little more competition to refine my skills. So I moved up to Edmonton. But the year before I moved up to Edmonton, when I was still with Kai, I was invited to a tournament in Kansas City. It was the Kansas City National Championships at that time. The next year, it turned into the Kansas City World Championships. But it's the biggest amateur boxing tournament in the world, open to all fighters globally. And a lot of countries would send the team to represent. So I think the first time I fought in the Kansas City National Championships, there was about 40 countries represented. There was some guys that went on to do amazing things in the professional ranks. One was Gennady Golovkin, who became arguably the top pound for pound fighter for 2-3 years. Daniel Jacobs, who fought Gennady Golovkin, who I fought at this tournament. But I went down to Kansas City. I got invited down. Just won my first national title. Was very unknown on the world scale. That's one thing about Canadians in the fighting world is when it comes to the world scale, Canada isn't really considered a threat. We have tough fighters up here. We have very talented guys up here, and obviously guys come out of the country that do make it all the way and can hang on the world level. But for the most part, once we get to the international level of competing, we're kind of in over our heads a little bit.
So Joel Mills came to put Canada on the map in big Kansas City then?
I did, man. There's been times in my life where magic has happened in the ring. And this was one of those times. I drew a guy from the Dominican Republic in my first fight, and his name was Fernando Guerrero. And I knew nothing about him. Nobody down there knew anything about me. So here we go, right? But little did I know that Fernando Guerrero was also a U.S. champion, and he lived in Baltimore, Maryland. And he was representing the Dominican Republic at the tournament because Daniel Jacobs, who was the world champion at the time, was representing the U.S. So off we went, and we had our fight, and round one started. And he was a southpaw, and southpaws are always difficult to deal with. And he was very talented. He was more talented than I was. Again, coming from Canada, I was a big fish in a small pond, and then you get onto that international level, and it's a different.
And you were, how old were you at the time?
So I was 16 at this time.
16, yeah, okay. As I say, you were still a pup yet.
Still a pup, yeah.
We think we were men back then, but we're still pups. That's for that.
I think about it all the time, how when I was, 16, 17, 18 years old, I think I'm a man now. I'm a man. Like, you don't even know what you're doing at that age. But yeah, so I fought him in round one, and he took round one. He took it to me pretty good. So I remember going back to the corner after that first round and thinking to myself, like, you can't do this. You're not going out in your first fight, because then I'd have to sit there and just watch everybody else compete. Like, no, I ain't going out like this. But at the same breath, I didn't have the talent to beat this guy. He was a talented fighter. So I go out there for round two, and away we go, and we're scrapping away. And I remember he hits me low. He hits me with this shot that was just under the belt. And I remember I was on the ropes, bad place to be. And I leaned back over the ropes, and he was a southpaw. So he had that right foot forward, and he tried cutting and slipping under my hook that I threw. And I just turned off the ropes with this left hook, just pivoted into it, turned my foot, and it just happened to be right place, right time, perfect shot.
Nice.
And awesome. I starched the guy. Good night. So, and I never knocked a guy out cold in the ring. In the amateur boxing, it's really hard to knock a guy out cold. Usually you'll get the stoppage from the referee or what have you, but because of the headgear and the foamy bigger gloves, it's like I say, I never KO'd somebody out cold like that in the amateur boxing ring, and I never did again after that. So
you think you just came in with maybe a little extra pep in your step that first one, where you're like, I just everything you had, all in it, all nerves, all everything, a little extra there maybe.
I honestly, Tyrone, believe that it was destiny. Like I really believe that there's been certain times in my life where in the boxing ring, especially, like I say, magic happens. And this was one of those times. So I go back to the corner, and I remember I was so juiced up because I had knocked him down. And in my mind, I had just evened the score of the fight with the knockdown, not thinking that I had KO'd him, thinking the fight was going to continue on. So back to the corner I go, and I'm so amped up, I'm slamming my gloves together, and probably foaming at the mouth like a dog. Like I was juiced. So I didn't realize when it happened that the entire crowd had gone dead silent. Like you could have heard a pin drop in this place. And the reason the crowd had gone silent is because I had just KO'd Fernando Guerrero me not knowing that he was somebody, and he was iced. And I recall me in the corner banging my gloves together, and one guy stands up out of the crowd, and it's my dad, and he stands up and he goes, "Joel, it's over. Relax. It's over," right? And I could hear him clear as day because nobody else is making any noise. So I chill out, realize that I just KO'd this guy. Well, because it's the biggest amateur boxing tournament in the world, I also didn't realize that every promoter, every manager, every scout, everybody who is in the boxing game was there scouting for talent.
That's that's the moment, right? Like everybody sees you on the stage, kind of thing, right? Like obviously I never went through boxing or anything like that, but just that's the moment. Like the scouts are there, right?
That single punch changed my life. It changed my life in a huge way. So I get out of the ring, and I'm 16, so I can't really handle business on my own. But I remember getting out of the ring, and everybody at this tournament was talking about that knockout. And everybody at the tournament was trying to get my contacts. We were getting contacts from like gyms in Philly, gyms in Vegas, gyms in New York. We want to take a look at your kid, send them out. And me and my dad are just like, man, I'm a small town kid from Tabor. This is crazy, right? So the next day, I fight again, and I draw this kid from Texas. And it was the only time in my life a kid ever took a dive on me. So because I had KO'd Fernando Guerrero, it started getting around this tournament, like, who's this kid from Canada? A lot of people actually thought I was Russian. So I'd be walking around the crowd, and I'd hear people say, like, did you see that Russian who KO'd Fernando Guerrero? Because, again,
I can see how you could be, like, taken as a little Russian, maybe just a jacked up little dude looking all grumpy. And facing it.
Canadian boxers, they just don't have the reputation like a Russian boxer. If you fight a Russian boxer on an international level, you're in deep. The Russians are some of the best fighters. But yeah, I remember just hearing whispers and stuff. So then next day I draw this kid from Texas, and we're fighting away. And I remember you could tell right away he was scared. And 100% because I did what I did to Fernando. I remember my corner man after I came back to the ring after round one in that fight. And I remember my corner man playing his day, not really giving me any guidance from a technical standpoint, but I remember him looking me in the eye and saying, "You have his balls. Don't give him back." So out I went for round two.
Put the fear of God into him instantly. Right?
Exactly. And sure enough, it was there because I threw a hook and I missed this kid by a couple inches, and he laid down, right? And he didn't get back up. So now all of a sudden it's 2 knockouts, right? I knocked out Fernando Guerrero. I knocked out this kid. Well, now everybody at the tournament's like, well, who is this guy, right? Like we got to figure this out. And again, it was a magical weekend. And that's why I really honestly feel that it was destiny, because it was a weekend that I could never recreate. So then the next day, semifinal match, I draw this kid named Fitzpatrick from Ireland. And we have a really good match. He's a tough guy. And I remember I ended up knocking him out with a triple right uppercut. And so the plot thickens again.
Just never-ending KO after KO. It's like the time of your life almost.
It was amazing. So I fight this guy, and in boxing, I'm a right-handed fighter. My right hand is back, and so if you crush a guy with a right hand and you kind of shake him up a bit, lots of times there will be time to reload another one. But a triple right hand is kind of unheard of, right? And I end up KOing this guy with a triple right uppercut. And again, it's funny because when you remember these things, you remember what was going through your mind and the mental processes of it. But in the boxing ring, things are moving so fast that you don't really, it's almost like those thoughts are just whispers, right? Like they instinctually whisper to you, and you listen to those whispers. So you're not really knowing what you're doing, but your body is speaking, right? So I remember I got this kid on the ropes, and I seen I had a spot to land this uppercut. So bang, I load one up and I catch him with it, right? And I think, okay, I'm going to reset. So when you're resetting a right hand, most times you're just trying to like place that weight on your back foot. But I was throwing uppercuts at the time. So I kind of almost leaped back, boom, reloaded another one into another uppercut. So I circled it, bang, I caught him again. And now I could tell he was real dummied. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm doing one more. And yep, sure enough, boom, third uppercut. He's on the ropes, kind of like laying on the ropes. Ref waves the fight. Well, now all of a sudden, I'm 3 knockouts deep in the tourney. I just KO'd a guy with a triple right uppercut. And on to the final I go. And in the final, I end up drawing this kid from Brooklyn, New York, who was the champion at the time. And his name was Danny Jacobs. And Danny Jacobs was like one of the most highly respected amateur prospects in the country, in the world. I mean, this kid was something special. He went on to have an amazing professional career. But I remember, so I drew him in the final, and he was one of those kids that everybody was watching again. So now all of a sudden, on the day of the finals, we were the ring to watch. Like Joel Mills versus Danny Jacobs was the fight everybody was looking for.
And I assume there was like probably obviously final days, so different weight classes, like quite a few different finals going on. I presume like you weren't the only final in your weight class. Just so
exactly.
There was like a whole tournament of like every weight class probably around the planet in there. Probably
every weight class,
finals.
Every age category. Yep. So at the tournament, there was 4 different rings that would go all at the same time, and each one of these rings had a different bell. And later in the tournament, it would expand to 6 rings. So at any moment, there were 6 rings going, and even during the finals, because we had youth open, youth novice, intermediate open, intermediate novice, female fighters, senior fighters, under 19, right? So there were still fights going everywhere, but on that card, we were the one people wanted to see. And nice. I remember fighting Danny Jacobs that day, and he beat me good. He put a whooping on me, but he was so much more talented than I was, and he was just trying to stay away from my power. So I was trying to trade with him. He wouldn't trade with me, and I just didn't have the skill to outbox him at that point in my career. So he beats me. I end up getting a silver medal at the match, and back to Canada we go. And it's the homecoming weekend in my hometown. Cornfest is the name of it. And
Cornfest, baby.
Yeah, Cornfest. Come for the corn, stay for the fun. Cornfest. So home I am, and I'm partying, having a good time. And Mike Cons was his name. He was a former Tabor guy who had moved to Los Angeles and had made his way into the boxing game. And one of his nephews was a friend of mine. And his nephew was at a barbecue with Mike, who was in town, and telling him about me. And Mike said, I want to look at some video of this kid. So we took Mike to my house. We showed him some video. And Mike had been involved with Freddie Roach at the Wildcard Boxing Gym and Manny Pacquiao. So I thought nothing was going to come of this. I was under the assumption that it was a magic weekend, but I would continue on my path towards the Olympics. And I get a call from Mike, and he says that Freddie and Justin want to take a look at me. He wants to invite me down to a Pacquiao training camp for a week down in LA. And my head just about explodes because the Cinderella story is now coming true, eh? And
and I guess a question I would have, maybe some others would have, like right now, here we are in 2023. Obviously, everybody on the planet knows Manny Pacquiao, right? Huge deal. One of the best boxers in the planet. For myself, who maybe didn't follow boxing as closely 20 years ago, like he was that big of a deal back then? Like obviously Tyson and those guys are still in the game, but is Manny pretty huge? Like is that like still a thing where you're like just as wild as it would be today?
No. I mean, he was huge. And the bigger part of that equation wasn't Manny Pacquiao at the time. It was Freddie and Justin. Freddie and Justin at the time, they were the most sought after team of trainers on the planet. They had done a stretch of like 6 years or something crazy where they didn't have a loss with a fighter together. They trained
Crazy.
7-8 world champions at the time, which is why I found it so amazing and so crazy. And again, I think destiny was at play when they accepted me and they said that they would take me on under a professional contract, because there were guys that were way ahead of me. There were guys that were way above my level that they were turning away at the time because they were too busy. But they were willing to take
I got a
shot.
couple pictures. I think I got a couple pictures from back then. I'll pop them up and we'll see if they bring up any memories for you. But there's a couple.
Oh yeah.
Couple old
So
ones. Where's that one at?
That's the ab work at the wild card. So that's Pacquiao and Pacquiao's training group there. And one thing that my coach Justin Fortune is known for is his ability to work the abs. And he used to have some of the nastiest ab work around. I mean, we used to just moan and groan as we were doing it and just hurt. But yeah, that was at the Wild Card Boxing Club. There, me and Manny are shadow boxing in the ring at the Wild Card. And yeah, we became.
Is that around that around the same era? Like this is all from around then back.
This is that same trip. So this is
nice.
This picture is from that same trip that me and my dad took our very first week down there.
Man, I can't wait to get your old man on the show. It's going to be some hilarious stories once we get him in there for sure.
Yeah, Earl has been he's been my guy from day one, and he's been my motivation in the sport. And yeah, we've had some awesome, crazy experiences through it all. There's me and Justin Fortune, who was through the professional ranks. Justin Fortune is my mentor through and through. He showed me the ropes, taught me everything I needed to know to survive the crazy world of professional boxing in LA.
I know you've told me a lot of stories over the years of all your times back then, and I'm always just honored to hear about it. It's cool, just all the amazing people that you got to interact with and hang out with. When I was just a little fella riding around my skateboard, hanging out, doing dumb stuff, you were out living this pretty legendary life. You're just looking like a pup in that picture. It's awesome to look back and see some of that.
Yeah, it was funny. And Justin at that time, Justin had just got done competing as a professional heavyweight. He was a high-level professional heavyweight, fought at many international tournaments, fought Lennox Lewis. The guy's a legend. But Justin was probably the biggest, toughest, meanest man I've ever come across in my life. I mean, that guy was hard as a nail at that point. And I was just this snot-nosed kid from Canada, trying to be down there and make my way. And me and Justin connected, we became like the odd couple. Everything we did together. And people would even say hey, man, what's the deal with you and the Canadian kid? Why? But he took me under his wing, and
that's awesome.
Taught me. Yeah, he changed my entire life. Without Justin Fortune, there's no way my life would have went the way it has gone. But yeah, it was very, very funny the way we connected, because we were very opposite people. But we accommodated each other well.
Nice. This looks like it's around the same era, doing some push-ups. Looks like maybe Manny there, the little picture you had up on the wall, a picture of it.
Yeah, Manny's walking around there as we're doing planks. And yeah, Justin used to make us do planks, and then he'd come around and he'd kick us in the guts. So I think that's probably what Manny's doing, is kicking us in the guts there.
He was the whipping boy back then, yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it was. So yeah, when I met Manny, he was.
Oh, there's a cool one.
Oh yeah, amazing chess player. Manny beat me every time we played. Yeah, so that was at the Vagabond Inn, which was just beside the Wild Card Boxing Club. And at that moment, that's where Manny would stay when he'd come do his training camps, was the Vagabond. Nice. But yeah, Manny was, I believe he was 122, maybe 128 pound champion when I met him. And when I met Manny, he was sitting on top of the world. He was a world champion. He had fought in some amazing fights on his way up, but being that small, you don't get the same amount of attention as you do when, you're a middleweight or a welterweight or a light heavyweight. So nobody would have ever assumed Manny would have done what he did in the boxing game at that point. There'll never be another Manny Pacquiao. You could make the argument, and it's a very good argument, that Manny Pacquiao could be the best fighter that ever lived. He's spanned the most weight divisions. He sat at the top of the boxing world for 2 straight decades. I mean, any sport, you look at tennis, you look at baseball, you look at hockey, you look at this, you look at that. I mean, maybe the Gretzky, maybe the Deion Sanders, maybe,
or like the Tom Brady or something, or Tiger or something, right?
Yeah, like Tom Brady would be a guy who you could.
Well, and that's why I asked the question earlier, like, how legendary was he, 20 years ago, right? Because you look at it now and you're like, oh, like, it's crazy to see where he is, and it's cool to just to know that, one of my good buddies now had that experience back in the day. That's so awesome to just be able to even just hearing the stories. I'm like, man, that's so cool. And it's like, not that it brings back a memory of me being in any of those situations, but it brings back memories of stuff that, like, I would have been watching some of that stuff back in the day. And it's just really cool to know that someone from just a few hours away up here in Canada was living alongside it all. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it was crazy, man. So I go down there for a week for Manny's training camp, and the way we start the day is we run in the morning. So 6 a.m. runs every morning, and that was one thing that was really tough because Manny liked to run fast, and he likes to run with people that can push him. And later on, I learned that was the reason that Pacquiao wanted me as part of his camp. And the reason why I got the offer wasn't necessarily because of my boxing ability, but because of my ability to keep up with him while we were running. So I remember on the first day, we wake up for our 6 a.m. run, and I'm jogging away, and Manny's going fast. And I let Manny take off, and I get lost. I can't figure out where I'm at. This is the first time we've run in LA, but I could still see him way ahead of me, right? So I finally speed it up and I catch him. So we get to the end of the run, and I'm like, I'm dead. I never caught him, but I saw where he stopped. I was able to keep him in vision for where we stopped. So I realized that next day that, like, I need to keep up with him or I'm going to get lost down here. So the next day we wake up.
You're just the training partner, the best motivation he had. But that's always been one of your, even to this day, it is like, you just fucking giver, man. You just don't stop, right? So that's probably like, you might have pushed him to be where he is now. Maybe we'll get him on the show one day. We'll be able to ask him. But like, your tenacity is wild, and we'll get into even recording that boxing show a little bit after. But like, I was just like, holy shit, Joel's an athlete. How's this guy?
That was freaking hard. Yeah, and I remember, I had honed in that ability in my head to just make the decision that, I'll die out here, right? Like, I made the decision that next morning that, like, I'm going to keep up with Manny Pacquiao or they're going to carry me out of this place in a casket because I'm going to make this happen. And it was like some of the hardest things that I ever had to do. But so I started keeping up with him on the runs. Then we'd kind of test each other. One would go faster, one would go faster. He liked to mix in like sprints here and there. And I'd stick with him. And then they tested me out sparring a couple times. So they wanted to see what I was made of. And they put me in there against some tough guys. And I remember I took some lickings down there that first go around because, I really didn't have a ton of skill. I had made it to where I had made it on just pure physicality and will. But as far as the actual art of boxing, I didn't learn any of that until I had gone pro, until I was well into my pro career.
Well, it reminds me of, like, not of boxing, but just like when I was around that age, like starting on the rings. Obviously, I went through the oil field stuff, like just a small guy, tiniest guy out there, like no business being out there, and just pure like will. Nobody, like, same thing, probably getting beat up at the end of the day at work and just coming back the next day, and these guys are like, why? And after a little bit, they're like, this guy's he's insane. We're keeping him around. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean,
I've always thought we've had that same like drive in us, like even if it's different paths or different worlds, like that tenacity to just like, let's not quit, right? Like, especially here we are a year and a half later, we're finally recording a show where like we got something that maybe functions and might actually pull this off. Not many people would have gone through the year and a half we did to get to this point of like being Neanderthals like we are, and then now try to build a media company in our old age, going like we got to adapt and move forward and build a platform for you and the next generation of boxers and fighters and just like evolve, right? But it's that tenacity to get through it. Not to derail from the boxing story, but just like,
well, no, that's
to see that perseverance.
And that's why, boxing it's a school for life, because like, you know, so many cliches. I always think back on like the cliches that you hear through boxing and about fighting. Like, it's not the size of the dog and the fight, it's the size of the fight and the dog, things like that. But the reason those are
like your logo, we got the dog logo.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, you ought to see the other guy. That's my logo, because that's what you got to. You got to live and die by that sword when you're in the boxing game. Is, you know, you ought to see the other guy. Who cares what happens to me? I'll be fine, right? But so many of them cliches come true, and you realize that there's truth to them, and you realize those things in the boxing ring because you have to. Out of necessity, you have to learn those lessons. But yeah, so they tested me a few times in sparring, and I took some lickings down there. Funny story, and I've talked about this on Storytime before, but I was the guy to bleed on 2 consecutive canvases at the Wildcard Boxing Club. The first guy to bleed on it. So that very first trip where we had them pictures, one of the first things we did, we went to the wild card, and they were rebuilding the ring at the time. So they were recanvassing it, fixing it up, nice brand new canvas. And I went into the gym the next day, and I got in one of these sparring sessions, and I got busted up, and I bled all over that canvas. And after getting out of the ring, people were like, "Oh, Mills is the first bleed on the canvas. You christen the canvas, right?" And it's one of those things that are like, it's a boxing kind of, I don't know if you'd call it an honor, but you christen the canvas is what they call
like a rite of passage. Like you own it almost, right? Your blood's the first to spill, right?
So my blood was the first to spill on that thing, and yeah, this goes to show you how much I bled on that ring. They probably change that canvas, you know, once every 3 years. You know, after about 3 years, there's just been too much blood, too much muck, too much. And the next time they changed the canvas, I was the first to bleed on it again.
That's hilarious. It's either a testament of like just some luck and timing, or just you're always bleeding, or you're always in there fighting a little bit of everything.
Well, and that's one thing I decided when I moved down to LA, and when I went down for this trip, is, you know, at the very least, I'm going to make them remember who I am, right? I'm going to make them remember what I was all about, and show them my character. And that's what ultimately got me the offer with Freddie and Justin. I remember I got done that week of training, and my plan was to go back and try to compete in the 2004 Athens Games. Nice. And I was rated 18 for the Athens Games, so I was young, but I had a chance to get there. And I remember we go out to Denny's, me, Freddie, and Justin, my dad, Mike Collins. We go out to Denny's, and yeah, in my mind, I was expecting them to kind of just give me some guidance as to where they thought I should go with my career. Should I go for the Olympics? Should I try to go pro? What's the deal? And we sat down, and Freddie and Justin said, "When you're ready to go pro, we'll take you on." And then again, like, my head just exploded. Like, are you kidding me? I just got this opportunity. Like,
it's huge, right? Like, it's like,
yeah.
Was there a moment where you're like, I guess if you go pro, you can't follow the Olympics. Is that, or not really, or how's that work out?
So that rule has gone back and forth a few times. At the moment, professional boxers are now allowed to compete, but at that
Which you
moment,
would think should be who could go is the pros, right?
yeah. At that moment, though, you had to be an amateur. So that was really
Gotcha.
the only reason for a high level amateur guy to stay amateur would be to get to the Olympics. And then after the Olympics, that's when you get scouted out by a team like Freddie and Justin. I mean, the fact that I got
Yeah.
an offer from those guys, it was like I skipped that step. I skipped the Olympics and I still got the offer from the big name trainers. So I go back home and it was just amazing because I had now won a national title. So I was Canadian champion. I had done that crazy, ridiculous weekend in Kansas City, which got me a ton of notoriety in the boxing world. And now I just got offered a contract with Pacquiao and Justin and Freddie Roach. So I come back to Little Canada, and everywhere I went, whether it was East Coast, West Coast, middle of Canada, people would come up to me like, "Hey, you're that guy who got offered the contract by Pacquiao, right?" And for the next 2 years,
cool.
from 16 till when I was 18, I won most of those fights on reputation alone. Same thing that happened in Kansas City. I mean, I would go into the ring and people would be already
Scared
themselves because they were in the ring with me, right? So, I had an amazing last.
I know that's how I'm gonna feel is if we get going through the show and like we were talking the one day, get some friendly competitions going. Or either I might have to get in the ring and box here, or we'll send you to half pipe on the skateboard. I'm gonna be like, oh my fuck, I'm done. Excuse me.
Oh man, yeah, I know what you've done. I'll feel the same way going down that half pipe ramp. But hey, we're the kind of guys that'll show up. We'll do it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
But
no, that's cool, and I'm really excited too to as we go through the show, bring it up some of those times and really breaking down some of those, like getting into Kansas, and talking about that all one day, and getting into some of the Playboy Mansion stuff. I'm sure with your old man, we'll do that, and it'd be cool to really just break down your boxing career and go through it. And I'm excited to do that with you as the show goes on. It's gonna be really fun because there's so many cool stories, right?
Me too. Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I love reliving them in my head. I really boxing to me is one of those things that it was so important to me, and I love it so much. And as I get older, I respect it more and more and more because I see what kind of positive impact it could have on people. And yeah, I love reliving those stories. And there's been many times in my life too when I walked away from the sport of boxing where it's been really hard for me to think back on those stories because I miss them so much, right? Just like any professional athlete.
Yeah. We'll bring the drive. We'll bring the drive back. We'll cherish them all and get them out there and tell them a little. It'll be fun.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and so obviously one thing I wanted to chat about a little bit too before we wrap up the show is obviously your new online workouts and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm sitting in my gym at home where I do them, but I guess a big part of the reason of how we got to this point doing the show is obviously, we met through Mania. We became buddies. Your old man plays fantasy sports and stuff with me. But when COVID happened, like a lot of us, you had to close the gym. And for those watching, wondering where Joel is, Joel's sitting in the bowling alley he owns there now in Tabor. We're building a new gym next door where eventually we'll be bringing all those new workouts and everything from. But obviously at the time when that happened, you started doing some online training for people. Myself, my gym was closed, so I started doing your online training. Here we are, 2-3 years later, I still do it all the time. I love the workouts. So I would love to hear a little bit about kind of just how that got started and touch on what you offer for classes and that. And I know I got a couple pictures from when we did the boxing class. I'll show some people there and just a little bit of how that all worked out for you. Because obviously you train people in person, and I think we'll get into that a lot with different people who you do train and stuff in the shows, but also be interesting to just hear a little bit about the online workouts, because I think it's one of the best programs in the planet. And I know we're going to evolve it into something where people can actually come sit down like me and you are right now before the live workouts and stuff, and actually have it so that you can get to know your customers and stuff like that. So I'd love to hear a little bit about those, because that's the reason I'm staying beautiful when I'm almost getting to be 40. So I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. No, yeah, it's the online workouts. They were an amazing addition to my platform. The way that they all started was, well, I'll start with how I got into the gym industry. So in my 10th pro fight, I broke my hand, and at the time, I was doing a boxing class, and I was training boxers just to make a few bucks on the side. Justin was letting me use the space, and I broke my hand. So then all of a sudden, I couldn't do mitt work no more. I couldn't do training. So I had a cast on my hand, and I learned how to do one-handed mitt work just to feed myself and pay the bills, right? So yeah, same thing. People would walk into the gym. They'd be like, "Who is this Muppet doing one-handed mitts?" And I'm like, "Hey man, I got to eat. Like I got to figure this out." So after that happened, Justin set me aside and he said, I need someone that I could trust and someone who I'm close with to partner in the gym, and asked me if I would get in. And I was 21 at the time. And I thought, what, this is going to make sense. So I scraped together every penny that I could find. And I bought into Fortune Gym. And the way I look at it is that was kind of paying for my education, because that started me in the gym industry. So from that point on, for the next 2-3 years in LA, I managed the gym. We did classes, we trained fighters, lots of personal training, sharpened my teeth there. And then in 2012, I was offered an opportunity to start Pro Performance Athletic Center, which was my first gym in Tabor. My business partner contacted me and he said, I got this opportunity. Let's start this gym up. And I was thinking about maybe moving home, wasn't quite positive. And as it worked out, I came home to start Pro Performance Gym. And biggest thing with Pro Performance Gym, and the biggest thing that I'm all about in my gym, is to have a non-intimidating atmosphere. Gyms can be so intimidating to walk into.
For sure.
It's one of those things that you need comfort. So I created the gym. The people in Tabor and abroad supported it. I'm so grateful to the town of Tabor for being always in my corner and supporting what I do, especially when it comes to boxing. So we started doing promotions, had the gym till 2020, ended up making a comeback, having 3 more professional fights and doing some big promotions here in Tabor, and really just bringing the culture of boxing back to where it all started for me. And then 2020 came, COVID hit, and I shut down. And at the moment, I've still been in the process of rebuilding. I'm rebuilding Pro Performance Gym at the
right next door to where you're sitting there, or I guess next door is where your boxing classes will be, and then you're bringing a whole new actual gym to Tabor again, right? Actual workout facility and everything.
Yeah, so our 24-hour key-lock gym. Yep, it'll be at the Star. The Star is LDS Church, 27,000 square feet, that was donated to the Star Society to start a community center and a performing arts center. So we've been pushing forward. That should be done and open for business come September, October. And BamBam Boxing Academy just behind us here at the Pin. This is going to be the boxing gym where I train the classes, train the boxers, and kind of.
Yeah, and who knows? By the time we put this out, it might already be up and running too, right? If I know you're about a month or so away now, so even by the time the show rolls out, that might even be existing over there. So that'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to push forward and get that done quick, and I look forward to the future. But yeah, the online workouts since 2020 have been my primary training. I train 5 mornings a week. I do every rep along the way. So each workout I do every rep along with you.
I'm always at home doing them. I'm always hanging out. I'm getting them done in here, baby.
That's awesome, man. No, the bands. That's one thing that is a huge part of my online training. Is mini bands class Tuesdays and Thursdays. I call it the meta bands. It's an hour-long class done all with mini bands. And the way that I got into the online training is I was contacted by a couple from London who were they were locked down in their apartment in London, and the only equipment that they could get was mini bands from Amazon. So they contacted me, asked me if I'd do a online program for them using the mini bands. And I'd never even touched a mini band prior to this. But again, I needed to survive and I needed to learn. So I said, yep, for sure. So I got me a pack.
Yeah, let's go.
Yep. And I started working with them, and it blew me away, the versatility of these things. I mean, it's like having an entire gym in your back pocket. You can take the gym anywhere you go.
Well, I know for me too, like when you at first said, like, I'm doing these bands workouts, I personally was always a person that just thought like, that's something that's maybe like easy. It's not a big deal. You're not going to gain anything from it. It's like a mobility thing, whatever. Right. But I'm like, well, fuck, if Joel's doing them. Let's give it a go here. And of course, they're pretty awesome, as I'm sure you'll get into. But I know my first thought too was like, hey, what's this going to be?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a shock. It really is quite a shock, and I think that's why so many people bypass the bands, because of the simplicity of it. The simplicity of it, I think, makes people think that obviously the results would be simple, but when you add these bands in at certain points during your workout and you superset them with weight training, I mean, the physique impact is unbelievable. So I started doing meta bands 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I increased it to crossbody fitness and on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays as well. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday is my crossbody training program. That uses an aerobic stepper, a single 25-pound weight, and a set of 5-pound dumbbells. And the motivation behind those classes, I have created an exercise program using a 25-pound plate. And I used to do this when I was training for fights. And I always thought to myself, if a guy could come up with a program where all you did was just leverage that 25-pound plate, whether you're hanging your arm down and you're working your legs, or you're holding it in the middle and you're working your biceps and your chest. I always felt that if a guy could make it so he can move that 25-pound weight for an hour, the strength would be ridiculous. And because it's a single weight, it's slightly off balance, so it's harder to hold. So all the time you're working those stabilizer muscles, which are those smaller muscle groups that are keeping your big primary muscle groups engaged and in the right form. So I started doing the Monday through Friday training program, and the results that started coming from this were just unlike anything I'd ever seen. I mean, in all the gyms that I've run in person, I've never got results like I have online. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. Reason number one is we go 5 straight days per week. And the whole idea is to let those results compound, let that muscle breakdown compound all the way to Friday. In order to do that, though, you have to do it safely, and you have to do it with a manageable weight. So you can't go into the gym and pump your bench press as heavy as you can 5 days in a row. It'll just never work. So the whole way that I've made the program is we start with our hardest lift on Monday. We start with our hardest resistance class of the meta bands on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we go into cardio. And by the time we hit Wednesday, all you need to do is just simply move through this workout. But because of the muscle breakdown on Monday and Tuesday, the results you see are still going to be as if you were going as hard as you possibly could through that workout. Same thing with Thursday, Friday. It's all about just safely compounding that muscle breakdown until we hit the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, in which case we take our rest days, maybe add a cardio day in, but we let our body heal. And then another thing that's really neat is as you hold that rhythm, the first few weeks you do it, you train 5 days in a row, you're like, I can't keep this up. There's no way. But your body will learn how to respond to that and learn how to recover over the weekend. And then those recovery periods are going to happen naturally. You're not going to have to think about them. And that's the way that you can out-train your diet. The way you can out-train your diet is to teach your body the rhythms of recovery, rest, work, recovery, rest, work. And if you could teach your body those rhythms and you could stay active through it, you could out-train your diet. I've trained people that I've gotten them to the point where they could, every once in a while, they can cheat. They can have a pizza. They can have a thing of wings, and it's not going to affect them at all because we got the metabolism running so fast.
Well, and I know for myself, like I at first I thought you were like a bit insane. Like this guy works out 5 days a week. Like now I'm doing all 5 days. Kind of they keep it up. Obviously, I'm not as insane as you. You're still training people a few hours a day, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Like I'm just like I do your workouts, right? I do my hour here and there a day. I'm now like kind of watching what I eat, trying to diet really good, trying to like get my physique up. But I'm hanging out with you when we're filming like the boxing classes. That's the guys eating like double flamethrowers. I'm like, how do you look so much more ripped than me? But it's also because you're working out like 5 hours a day, right? So like getting through the program you've created, the online one, it's awesome. And for those who haven't tried it right now, Joel's on Facebook. You're live 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. They're separate courses. We're building out a website right now where we're going to offer your customers all of it in one course. They're going to be able to come in and either do the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or the Tuesday, Thursday. They're going to have the freedom to do any and all of it, try it all, work through all 5 of them. So I think it's going to be really cool when we can, get that data bank sitting in there and have it so that your customers can either come join you live, which I do some mornings, and over time, like I said, we'll probably get something interactive like this going through our Discord or things like that, where people can come hang out, talk to you, do things. And if you're not able to make the live, all those workouts are in a data bank right now, again, just in your Facebook group. But we'll get that website all set up and running, and people will be able to come, go to nftprofitness.com, set up their membership, and have access to that 2-day, 3-day MetaBands course, obviously. And then obviously we filmed with our buddy, a friend of mine there, Connor, with Player Post. He came out, and we also filmed a boxing course. I got a couple pictures from it, actually. Probably one of the most insane things I ever seen in my life was you going through that and doing those workouts for a few days there. It was pretty intense. Yeah, I'll show you a couple pictures we got of you, but it was pretty wild watching you go through some of those workouts there. I would say it's the craziest I've ever seen someone work out in a few days. Like we went through filming that class over a couple of days and getting your boxing course all set up. It's a 14 class course where basically you work through like the basics of boxing all the way through it. And I don't know if you want to tell a little bit about that course, but like, look at you, you're an absolute
100%.
as ripped.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, no, I filming that course was what a challenge. I mean, so we filmed 7 classes one day, 7 classes the other, 14 altogether.
We ended up having to go 3 days because we did just it was too depth for you, right? Like,
oh man,
no human could have got through like what you did do. I was like, oh my. I feel like a pile. I'm just sitting here drinking coffee because I have to be silent in the camera room, just being an absolute, like, I just felt like the laziest human on earth. I'm like going and doing push-ups in the corner in between because I'm like, this dude just did like 8 hours of insane workout. Like, wow.
Yeah. No, that was tough, man. That was really tough. But it's something that like that things like that have always come like really natural to me, which is why like I was drawn to boxing and I needed to express myself that way because I have always had that ability to just I turn my mind off and I just can work through most things. There's been a couple times in my life where physically I couldn't continue on with something.
What about the kids?
Yeah, they always came out and said hi to me out in the gym. But yeah, no, the BamBam Boxing Academy that we filmed with Player Post, unbelievable. The best thing is I got to put it together, starting with the basics, working your way through this program, but then also leaving opportunities to intensify it so you could keep growing and keep working through the boxing mechanics that we work on, the mentality stuff that we work on. I really feel like any fighter, whether you're a competitor, whether you're just a leisure boxer, or whether you're a high level amateur or high level pro, lots of things that I touch on were things that I learned in the professional game, especially when it comes to mentality and the relaxation behind it. That's one of the most amazing things of boxing too, is it's one of those things that when you could find your flow and you could find your rhythm through it, it's easy to improve. It's easy to see those improvements. And physically, you train like a fighter and you look like one. And most times when you see a fighter, they are pretty ripped, pretty lean, and if they're not doing something right. Because
well, you're an absolute specimen. Like, I know there's no doubt people see how jacked you are. The results. Sorry, I said made up a word there, but the results are like undeniable, right? Like, I'm always sitting here going like, how do I get that? Like, what's going on over here, right? Like, do I eat the flamethrower, or what do we do, right?
No, you're on the right track, Tyrone. Yeah, and that's one thing too that I really love about the online is when I'm training somebody in person, I can't take part and do that workout with every person. You know, I might do one workout a day with one of my clients, but it's easy to teach people how to pace themselves the right way to see the right results, and get rhythmic with your breathing, get rhythmic with your reps. It's easy to do that as an example rather than as telling somebody to do that.
Well, and I think once you get the boxing gym open next door again too, you might have some people that are there with you while you're recording the lives, which would be cool. And then obviously it'll just be really interesting to see where it all evolves and how those classes are taken in. I think we were thinking about maybe even having it on Fridays where people can come join those live classes and actually, if they want, like, come up and work out with you. Like, because I know myself, like, just going and doing a workout, like, it's cool, right? Like, there are some days where I just do my own like little half-hour arm or leg workout, but like, it's so easy to lose motivation, and I'm sure a lot of people are the same as me, where I like having that little video where you're there, like, okay, you could go, because I guess there's that comparison too, right? Like, even though you are like a pro and like probably 10 times more jacked than me, I'm still like, if this guy could do it, like, I got to get through it, right? And you get that extra level spark, and just even if I'm not there for the live, just having that spark, that motivation, I love doing them. But I think it'll be fun to try to maybe see how we can evolve that Friday thing where we'll start doing it where maybe myself, I'll be the first person to get up there and see how I keep up with you in a live workout, but just getting some of your customers involved in that too, and making it fun for them, right? And allowing them the option to come do that with you, have some laughs when the recording's over, sit down, have a cup of coffee like we do, and have some fun with it. So I think that'll be really cool where this all goes. But I know we've been chatting for a while, obviously. Really cool to do this first episode with you. I'm honored to get to co-host it with you and hear a little bit about, how you came through to be where you are in your career and where things are going now with your workouts and stuff. I'm sure over a bunch more shows we'll really dive into all that. I think we got some of your guests will be some of the people you're training. We'll get Earl on over time. We'll have some other people in the show, but I think it's going to be really fun to dive into a lot of stuff. And just thank you for helping change my life a little bit, motivate me and keeping me working out and just, believing in me to do this project and show and stuff with you too. So I'm glad to be here, Joel, and I'm excited to kind of try to help showcase the world what you do as we try to evolve into the next phase of our lives here in our, I guess, mid-30s or the other half of it.
Absolutely, man. No, I appreciate that, Tyrone, and thank you for being here as well, man. It's been an awesome ride, and again, when the Ringside Banter, I really love the idea of this show because you could touch on things that have been learned in the boxing ring that people can connect with, and they could experience themselves as you're talking about it because it's a place in the world where, looking from the outside looking in, you think to yourself, there's nothing to be learned in there. These guys are just beating themselves to a pulp, but there's so much. Yeah, there's so much more to the game that remains unseen. The things that are going on in the athlete's head, and the things that are going on in the trainer's head and the crowd's head. The psyche aspect of boxing is just it's amazing, and I don't think you'll ever plumb the depths of it. I think there's always ways that you can learn more, talk more, and experience more through the sport. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'm so looking forward to where the BamBam Boxing Academy, NFT Pro Fitness, and Bush League Media takes this, because we're on the verge of some big things, and it all starts right here, right now.
Yeah, and obviously, I think with obviously your skills, your training, you're the next generation of boxers you're going to be able to bring up. If in today's world, I think you have to be a little bit media involved. So if we could create that platform, not only for your boxers to learn and grow as humans and become better fighters, but also create something like this where we can help them grow, network, help them in their careers or where they might go. That's going to be a really cool aspect. But obviously, really excited to be along for episode 1 of Ringside Banter. I don't know if you have anything you want to say to close us out, any words of wisdom or anything like that. I'll play us out. This will be our first outro, but so stoked to have done this with you, Joel, and I look forward to where we can take it from here, my friend.
100%, man. No, and just want to tell everybody out there that thanks for being on here with us. If you're looking to improve yourself, improve your fitness levels, improve it all through boxing, guys, through the NFT Pro Fitness Club and the MetaBands program, we'd love to have you join us online. And like I say, it's as easy as just turning on the computer. If you show up, I'm there doing every rep with you. And I'd love to see you. Let's get it.
Home of the shotgun and a blade sharp tongue, and it's accepted to drink cause it's sin. I tell you my first and my last name, but you'll probably think I'm undercover. We'll gather around the table if you must know the story of a man they call Bad Motherfucker. I ain't from Mississippi, but they know my name. I done ran through all of Georgia down to New Orleans. Tore up and drunk and pissy, riding high.